Hello, everyone. Welcome to another virtual activity for Hospitality and Tourism Month. Today, we are focusing specifically on a unique part of tourism, that's event tourism, where our local Sonoma County events are sometimes known around the world and bring people from around the world, which is a huge part of our tourism industry here. So we're going to talk about that and the types of careers that fall under that. And so who we have today with us is we have Brad Calkins from Visit Santa Rosa. We have Judy Walker here, who's an event coordinator for events like the California Artisan Cheese Festival. And we have Beth Costa from Wine Road. And before we're going to go into some more detail about each of their roles and the events that they put on. But before we do that, Brad, I am going to look at you and I'm going to ask you, can you kick it off just by giving us this broad picture about how important our tourism industry is to Sonoma County and how events play into that, please?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. Tourism is definitely a large part of what Sonoma County has to offer, and events are a big part of bringing that to us. Just alone in direct consumer spend, so what visitors come to Sonoma County to spend is over $2 billion in 2019. Now, we know that's going to change in 2020, and we can all see that. With that $2 billion, some important things to remember, that's almost $50 million in taxes collected on hotels that go to the general funds of the county and the different cities. And we get over 10 million visitors to Sonoma County in the year. So a lot of people coming up, those people spend about $206 a night. So it's important to that. And the one thing people don't always realize to remember is that only about 25% of that spend is on lodging. So people are spending money on food, retail, entertainment, wine, transportation. And in Sonoma County, that also represents over 22,000 jobs. So it's a big part of what we do in Sonoma County. And I think another thing is people don't always realize is 85% of those businesses are independently owned, and 43% have been in business for over 20 years, and almost over 75% employ fewer than 24 people. So it is a lot of smaller family-owned businesses that have been around in the county for a long time that are the ones that take care of all those visitors, including those coming for the large events in Sonoma County and Santa Rosa.
Brad, do you mind touching on what makes our tourism unique? What is it about? What is the pull, right? What is it about our area that brings people in?
So what it is actually what's behind me. And it's two things. The wine is one of the biggest draws, and so is the outdoors. And the big thing for wine in Sonoma County versus some other areas is the diversity in both appellations, but also varietals, which can also be seen in outdoors. People come here for the outdoors and they can do the coast, the redwoods, the river, some of our great natural. You can go to Armstrong Woods. The amount of people that love to mountain bike, yes, they come from out of the area to mountain bike in Annandale, but they also come from out of the area to do the road bike of the major tours like the Amgen tour that came through here at one time, or the Grand Fondo ride that Levi's does. So it's the diversity of both the wine and outdoors. We in Santa Rosa also really promote the beer. And we also have a lot of unique attractions. The Schultz Museum, you can't find that anywhere else. The Safari West, again, is also a very unique attraction that's specific to Santa Rosa and Sonoma County that people come from out of the area just to do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. So now I'd like to hear from each of you a bit of a description of your organization, the events that you put on. Judy, I'm going to start with you. Brad, you're going to go last now. You've been talking. Judy, I'm going to start with you. And I know you put on the Artisan Cheese Festival, but you also put on other events as well. And so could you give us a few minutes about all of those events that you put on?
So I've been doing events in Sonoma County for over 30 years now. And in that time, I've done a lot of different events. Some are tourist-based and some are community events. So the Artisan Cheese Festival is one that draws people in from all over the country. Also the Wine Country Big Q Worked with Kendall Jackson when they had the Tomato Festival. And then the community events are like the Luther Burbank Rose Parade. Some of the students may be familiar with Wine Country Chefs of Tomorrow, which is a benefit for the high school culinary arts programs. And, I book rooms for the Levi's Grand Fondo bike ride. So I don't have the same events every year, but often I have a number of different events that I do in 1 year's time.
Now you provided us a video. I think this one is focused on the Cheese Festival. I'm thinking let's play that, and then we'll come back because I do have another question I want to ask of you. Well, now I'm hungry. So, a couple of questions that I have for you. One, just about that particular cheese festival, an event like that looked like it was at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. How many people does an event like that see?
So that is not a huge event in comparison to some of the events that happen in the county, but it is a 3-day event, and that is just one piece of it that you saw. So that is the marketplace that it was mainly focused on. The marketplace will see about 2,500 people, and it will have about 100 different vendors involved with it. Other pieces of that, there's farm tours on one of the days. There's a dinner with restaurants where they make their best bite and people come out and do a tasting. There's a spirits and cheese event. So there's different pieces that go along with that 3-day event to keep people entertained and educated while they're in the community.
I think it's important to note too that it's events like that really strengthen what we put out there in the world, right? We like to say in Sonoma County that we are an artisan food location. And for visitors who want that experience, it is those kinds of events that strengthen that marketing and that really cater to that type of person who wants that. So the other question that I had for you, Judy, is you had mentioned that you're taking some of this event experience and you're doing something with the COVID vaccine rollout, was it? Would you mind actually just talking about that a bit?
Yes. So I'm an event person, and obviously we can't do in-person events right now. So there's no Cheese Festival this March. There was no Cheese Festival last March. But I have been able to take my skills and the people that I know, and we are staffing 4 of the county vaccination centers right now. So we're using our hospitality skills, we're using our communication skills, our organizational skills, and we're helping the county to get people vaccinated.
I think it's great that you're taking those skills in event coordination and putting them to something like this. It's something that you wouldn't think would go well together, but they really do, So.
It's true.
Well, thank you very much. Beth, I'm hoping that we could now move over to you and learn a little bit about Wine Road.
Sure. So I'm Beth Costa, and I'm the Executive Director of Wine Road, Northern Sonoma County. And what that is, it's a winery and lodging association. We have about 200 members. And really, our reach is directly to consumers. And we try to let people who love wine, who want to come to this area, know about all of the wineries that are in the area. As Brad had said, so many of our businesses, our wineries and our lodgings are really small family-run operations. So they don't have a marketing department. They don't have an ad budget. They can't really, they don't have an easy, affordable way to reach people across the country and let them know about their wines. But as part of our association, as part of Wine Road, we can run promotions, they can participate in them, and we can, introduce them to consumers who may not have found them. So the Wine Road has been around for about 45 years. It really started with a group of about 6 wineries who 40-something years ago realized that if they worked collaboratively together, it'd be much easier to tell their story of the wineries and the wine region here in Sonoma County. And so it's grown over the years. We have 3 big annual events that are certainly never going to go back to being the events that they were in the past. A lot of people are familiar with our barrel tasting event that has been the first weekend in March for 45 years. So last year, due to COVID, we actually ended up canceling and refunding the second weekend of that event. So we are really working with our wineries and helping them promote virtual events. And we're helping coordinate really small private tastings for our members. We have our first we're not really calling it an event, but we're doing Wine Love Weekend in the end of March. And at this point, that'll be 1 year since we had our shutdown last year in March. Mm-hmm. So there's been no events. There's been any kind of events since then. Mm-hmm. So this will be our first weekend. We have about 40 wineries, and they're all doing everything they need to do to play along with go along with the restrictions that are in place. People have to have a reservation at each winery. There's no just drop-in wine tasting at this point. Everything can only be done outdoors. So only the wineries that have covered patios and the ability to serve people outdoors can participate. So it's really limited. In the past, something like barrel tasting might have brought 5,000 or 6,000 people from all over the country. So for this little Wine Love Weekend, we hope to have 100 people that will participate. Mm. And we just want to keep Wine Road and our wineries top of mind to wine lovers across the country. We want to make sure that whether people can be here in person or not, they don't forget about the wineries in Sonoma County. So we've done promotions every single month since last March that have just encouraged people to order by phone and do curbside pickups. So it's not really an event, but it's sort of a campaign to keep people remembering our wineries. So that's kind of what we do. We have an event in January normally that's called Winter Wineland that we didn't do this year. Maybe next year it'll be back on track. And then we have a food pairing event in November that we're confident that this year we will be able to do in November, where wineries all create a recipe that goes with the wine that they're serving, and they serve the recipe along with it. So it's a nice food and wine pairing. That's kind of the scoop. Great.
And we have a couple of videos, short videos, I think 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, let's take a look. And then, so that was Winter Wineland, and that one was January, and then this one is March, right?
Yeah, barrel tasting. All the memories.
You're like, I miss those.
I'm gonna go cry now in the back of the room.
we all miss in-person events. It's quite sad. But I don't want to get quite into it yet, but I do have a question later on when we get into the Q&A about how the pandemic has impacted this. But on top of that, also where we see the future going after the pandemic, right? I think it's important to realize that sooner or later we will be back to in-person events, and that's very important for us. So, was there anything else, Beth, that you wanted to say before we move on?
No, I think we'll get into questions. I have all kinds of ideas, but I'll let it go till the questions come.
Okay, great. Brad, let's move on to you because you're a destination marketing organization with Visit Santa Rosa. So I'd like to hear about an overview of maybe what Visit Santa Rosa does, but also some of the events that you play a role in.
Yes, Visit Santa Rosa, our goal is to get people to come over to spend the overnight in Santa Rosa. And we drop that into 3 buckets. One is what we call the leisure guests, or the individuals. So a couple coming for wine tasting, a family coming up to do the coast and Safari West. We work on groups and meetings. So like you would see a group or sales group come into one of the hotels, have a few meetings or a trade show. And the third one is to work with events. And then that events is really, divided to so many different topics within that. We can work from creating the event like we did with Rate Beer Best that we held for a few years. We were there from the beginning to create that event and have it. For events that we have like Amgen Tour of California or the Ironman, we act as a local organizing committee, really helping out with the logistics and all the details. And then another event like Snoopy's Home Ice, where we help them find the rooms for the referees and the teams for their senior hockey tournament. And then you can move on to something like the Cheese Festival or Wine Road, where we work with our partners and we'll pay to bring in a media person. And the catch is the Cheese Festival, like we did with Judy, or we've done with Beth. So we bring a writer in who writes for a food magazine or a wine magazine. We host them and we show them everything there is about the area, but we really use one of their events as a hook. And then we have simple events where we just help with the marketing, and that's it. We just get the word out that the event's happening, and it helps us showcase Sonoma County as a destination. So it really is all over the spectrum of how we work with the events and how deeply we get involved. I mean, some are simple social media posts, and some we have a staff person dedicated to working with the event organizer.
Brad, you mentioned social media. I was speaking to someone from Sonoma County Tourism just a couple of days ago in another tourism-focused discussion, and she was mentioning how social media influencers are actually one of the most effective way to bring people to this area, at least what they've found. Have you found something? Do you work with influencers like that as well?
Definitely. That's very important. The hardest part is finding that right influencer, finding that person who talks about not just wine, but travel and wine. Because you can find some wine writers who they just write how great wine is, but they don't talk about travel. You can find that food writer. There's lots and lots of food influencers who write about food. But if the people who are reading their blog, watching their Instagram, looking through their social media feeds, if they don't travel, then you're not hitting that right influencer. But when you find that right influencer who writes about cheese and food and whose audience travels, those are the ones we want to go after, and they have a huge impact. And again, it's a lot of times it's the quality of the influencer, not the quantity. So it doesn't matter if they have 100,000 followers. If they're not writing about what you need to have influence, then it doesn't do us any good. But if we can find that right person, even if they only have 10,000 followers as an influencer, that makes a big difference. And we see them come, and you can read through the person's comments on Instagram or Facebook or the different social media platforms. You can see them to see that they really do have the ability to get people to want to think about the lifestyle of Sonoma County.
Mm-hmm. Well, we have another video that really it's a marketing video for Santa Rosa, but I think it sums up all of the ways that we've mentioned the word ecosystem kind of comes into play when it comes to tourism and hospitality.
65 miles north of San Francisco, in the urban heart of the wine country, you'll find Santa Rosa, a city with a cool vibe and a vibrant culture waiting to be explored. Santa Rosa is a foodie's paradise without the pretense, where fresh from the farm is standard fare. We're authentic, and so is our vibrant food culture. Farm-to-table cuisine was invented here, and not because it was trendy, because it's how we live. Santa Rosa is the perfect hub to explore Sonoma County with your family. Kids, and kids at heart, will adore a visit to the home of Snoopy, Charlie Brown, and their friends at the Charles M. Schulz Museum, or right next door at Snoopy's Home Ice. Or take them to the Sonoma Serengeti at Safari West, a world-renowned preserve dedicated to conservation and home to some of Earth's most graceful, majestic, and exotic creatures. While wine may take center stage here, Sonoma County also cultivates A-list music and entertainment. Love a good outdoor concert or Broadway beneath the stars? What with our gorgeous scenery and great weather, simply grab a perfect picnic of fresh, local food and delicious wine or craft brew. Pull up a seat, we're all friends here. Admit it, you were designed for outdoor adventure. Breathe in the fresh air, connect with Mother Nature. Fancy a bike ride? With international professionals and Ironman athletes riding our roads for fun and competition, we know a thing or two about exploring on two legs or on two wheels. No matter what the occasion, it happens here all year in Santa Rosa. When you visit Santa Rosa, you'll soon learn you're going to need more days, which is wonderful because the truth is, you're always welcome here.
So something to point out is all those events that we saw. We saw Country Summer, we saw Ironman, they mentioned Broadway Under the Stars, as well as all of those things that we see every day, the vineyards, the food, that bring people here. And all of that, I think, goes really into this ecosystem that we keep on mentioning. But I'd like to move into our Q&A, which segues really well into my first question, which is about the ecosystem. And I'd actually, instead of going necessarily one by one through each of you, I'd almost like to open up a conversation and a dialogue about this ecosystem, because I think it's really important, especially when we're considering that the students, mainly high school students that are watching this, are really trying to listen for certain things about career opportunities that may be within this industry. So I'd like to open up that discussion about the ecosystem, about how you each fit into that, and how there's just so much within that, including the careers. So I'm just going to open up to see who wants to maybe start.
Okay, well, I would just jump in and say, like, the Wine Road is a large organization, but we can't do it all on our own. And so, just coincidentally, I'm on a panel with two people who I have worked with pretty extensively. As far as Brad goes, when we put together big events, we have a pretty good reach. We have subscribers who we have an email list for, so we can connect with people that way across the country. But I always make sure that Visit Santa Rosa is absolutely tuned into everything that we have going on, as well as tourism, because they do have a huge social media reach. They can go beyond what we can do, and they will partner with us and bring maybe a journalist up for one of our events and help with that. And then there have been years when we've had so many smaller events going that we as a group couldn't manage it really all on our own. So my first call was to Judy, who I know has experience pulling together any kind of event. And the first meeting that you sit down with Judy, she'll say, okay, well, we need this, and we need this, and we need this, and we need this. And she will just take care of it. You can just hand it over and say, these are the dates, and this is what my expectation is. And, if you work with an event planner, she has the connections and she knows the timelines and the time flow to make things happen. So Yeah, you really definitely have to work beyond your little network. You have to expand and work with other people.
I agree. I mean, I utilize all my resources for my events because my events are all very different. So I need the wineries. So, you know, Beth's got wineries. Brad, he supports our marketing end of things and pulls in journalists and helps us with hotel rooms if we need help with hotel rooms. So each event's a little different, but it uses all different pieces of the community to make it happen and make it work smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first moved here, I started out hotels and I worked with Beth and Judy as a hotel general manager on the other side. And it continues now because the whole ecosystem works together. And it also brings in the restaurants and the attractions and the activities, just everything together.
Mm-hmm. And there is so much to see here. As far as when people are talking to us, consumers are talking to us about coming to our event, they might be coming here for a week, but they're only going to do the event for 2 days or 3 days. So then I know that I need to connect them with other places. I know they're going to want to go to the coast and what should they do there. And I know that they might want to go up to Lake Sonoma or to Schultz Museum. So yeah, we do work with our other partners to make sure we're up to speed on every other opportunity that there are for visitors. I always say I want to make sure that whoever comes here has such an amazing time they come back. You know, we don't want it to be a one and done. They did wine country, they're never coming here again. We want them to leave knowing that there's things that they missed out and they want to come back.
And when we put the Cheese Festival together, we look to see what we can include to round out somebody's experience. So we do a cheese week where you go out and you dine in the restaurants and they do a special cheese menu for the week. And then we, have wine tasting opportunities and take them out on these farm tours where they can see other small businesses that are in the community. And what our goal is, especially with the small businesses, is our tourists to these other little businesses that they might be able to find in their own markets, wherever they come from, or they can buy online or request that those generally food or wine products or beverages, request those in their, wherever they come from, in their state, their city.
So, what I'm hearing is just that there's just so many different branches. It's almost like it's like a tree or a bush where there's just so many different branches. Whereas you might come for one thing, but there's no way you're only going to come for this one thing. You're going to be a part of other hospitality and tourism things that we have here. And I think that's important for the students who are considering, especially a starting career, that the hospitality and tourism industry means a server in a restaurant. It means a tour guide. It means somebody working at a museum. There's just so many opportunities within that industry. I'd really like to narrow it down now and ask each of you about how you got into your current career. And maybe Beth, if we could start with you, how did you get into like an event management career? I guess in this case, Wine Road is more than event, but.
So actually, I moved to Healdsburg about 30 years ago, and I had been a buyer in a department store. So I had a pretty strong retail background. And when I first moved here, I was going to take some time off and not work. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to work, I just want a part-time job in a winery. We live in wine country. I want to learn about that. So I applied for a job and I walked in the door saying, okay, this is what I know about wine. There's red and there's white. I mean, that was it. I had absolutely zero wine knowledge whatsoever, none. But I did tell the tasting room manager at the time, but I can make this place look better in about an hour. And so they hired me. They hired me right there because I had that marketing skill and I knew I could make it look nicer and I could learn about the wine. So I was lucky to be hired by a really large winery that did offer great training for all of their employees. So, I mean, I was thrown into the tasting room, not really knowing what I was doing, but I learned they offered enough tastings and wine blending classes that I really got to know that. I ended up on the board of directors for this organization, the Wine Road, which at the time was run by a board. They didn't have an employee. And as a board member, we reached the point where we knew the Wine Road couldn't really get to the next level without someone permanently devoted to it. and I was ready to make a change. So I raised my hand and I said, well, I would like that job because I know what the Wine Road needs. And I understand the wine business, the wineries, marketing, the whole thing. So I was really fortunate to be, I think, at the right place at the right time. And it's been amazing to see it grow to what it has grown to. Perseverance and confidence. There you go.
You know, it's funny is I was going to ask, what are some of the key skills that you think are important for, you know, that got you to where you are? And I think you just literally answered that.
And then a skill that I like with the people I work with is I like, particularly, I think Judy for sure would agree with this. If you're going to work in event planning, you have to be a problem solver. Like, I don't really care whose fault it is. I don't care who just dropped the ball. Mistakes get made, but I need somebody who can figure it out and fix it and carry on as if, you know, this was the plan. A problem solver, thinking on your feet, is so important.
I agree.
Judy, that's a good transition right over to you. I'd love to hear how you got into event coordination.
So I graduated from college and kind of bounced around just a little bit, restaurant manager, and I was cheese festival store manager, just little short stints until I landed a public relations position at Kendall Jackson. And at Kendall Jackson, I did public relations, then I did a little bit of brand management, and actually ended up doing more of the events end of things. But my life changed a little bit. I got married, I had a baby, and when my son was 1 year old, I said, hey, look, I need to change my situation. I think it's time to go out on my own. And so Kendall Jackson kept me on as a contractor, and I started my own business, and that was 24 years ago. And I have had amazing clients, and I always try to say yes, you know, to helping, you know, I work with a lot of nonprofits, but I always try to say yes, because I always think that, you know, I want to help. And there's a lot of ways to help these events grow and change. And it's just an exciting place to be. You have to be very detail oriented. You've got to be creative, and you've got to use your resources, because there's, you know, the people you meet and the places you go are what's going to help you be successful. I mean, Beth, it has been amazing. You know, we all learn from each other, and I can tell you that every event you're going to learn, you're going to experience something that you didn't anticipate. There's going to be something that's going to happen or go wrong that you could never plan for. And like Beth said, problem solving, you've got to be able to figure out how you're going to make it work without everybody seeing that you had a problem.
You know, I'm noticing a theme though, is starting at in the wine industry. Brad, did you start in the wine industry too?
I did not. In high school, looking for colleges, I thought that hotel restaurant was where I wanted to go. And I was living in the Midwest. I grew up in the Midwest, and actually chose Michigan State because I wasn't positive, but Michigan State's hotel school is part of their college of business. So the first 2 years was everything that any business major would take: your accounting, your finance, your stats, your business management. And your last 2 years are your specialty. And so that's why I chose Michigan. I wasn't sure, you know, had an idea that's what I wanted to do, but I really wanted to start out in that business side of it. So went to Michigan State. And except for the first job out of college, everything else that was all networking. People I knew, my advice would be to stay in touch with people, talk to them, even if you only talk to them once or twice a year, because it wasn't about Indeed. It wasn't about finding an ad after getting out of school in Michigan State. And I did spend, in event management specifically, I did spend a couple years as catering convention services at the Westin in Santa Clara, which is 500 rooms, part of the convention center, so a huge space. And what I learned there from my old boss, I keep telling everyone with events, if you're worried about today, it's too late. You need to be planning about the event coming up next. Because if you plan it right, and yes, things will go wrong. And as Beth said, let's fix it. Let's not place blame, let's fix it. But all the work for the event planner comes before the event happens. If it's the day of, you should be doing your best to, I don't want to say relax and enjoy, but not to stress out and not to have to, so when something does happen, because it does, how to fix it. I mean, and the same thing was when the hotels, sooner or later, someone's AC is going to go out. Sooner or later, there's going to be a computer glitch. But if you've done everything else in planning, then come the day of, you can react to those situations, or you can be out there visiting and talking to the people and enjoying it more than trying to run it day of.
I'd like to reiterate your talk about networking. That is, you know, I worked with you, Brad, for a while at the Santa Rosa Chamber, and I got that job through networking. I came out of just retail, 12 years of retail. But the same thing that I was told then, I think is important for students to know now, is any sort of customer facing job is an incredible first job that will provide you with some of those key skills that you need that will take you anywhere you want to go. One of the reasons I got hired at the Santa Rosa Chamber when I did, or it was for a program of the Santa Rosa Chamber, they specifically said they liked that I had customer service experience, right. Which I thought was very interesting at the time. But then as I go through and I network more and I realize the importance of those connections, I realize why that's so important. And I think it's also important to recognize that the hospitality industry is full of those kinds of careers. You're going to need those same skills if you are in a tasting room, if you are a host or hostess, you know, anything like that. Those kinds of customer facing skills are absolutely critical and can take you anywhere. I do want to, we're winding down here at the end. I wanted to ask though, where we are with the pandemic right now. I know it's impacted everything that we all do, but I kind of want to, instead of talk about how it's impacted us, because I know that means that some of our events couldn't happen, I'd like to talk about where we think it's going to go. Because the students right now that are considering these possible career paths are maybe they're graduating in June, maybe next year or the year after. So I'd love to hear how you think, our hospitality and tourism is going to look maybe in this coming fall or in 2022.
Well, I think what you had said about the customer service skills, that is not going to change. And I think now when the wineries can reopen, I mean, right now they're open to a degree because they can serve wine outdoors. But when they're actually back to being really open and their tasting rooms are going full speed ahead, there might not be as many visitors that come. But if these wineries continue the program of having reservation only, that means that every customer that comes in has made the effort to go online, book a reservation or call and made a reservation, and they're going to expect a higher level of service. And so the customer service skills are going to be more and more and more important. And that's what's going to bring customers back to that winery. That's going to make customers join their wine club because they had an amazing experience. That is key. When I was at Kendall Jackson, my whole thing was I never cared about hiring people that knew a lot about wine because I started knowing nothing whatsoever about wine. You could learn about wine, but I can't teach you to be friendly and courteous and polite and considerate. I mean, that's the skill that most everybody hiring in hospitality is looking for. It's key.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think, do you think that our area is going to recover anytime soon as far as our hospitality and tourism coming back and therefore the jobs coming back?
I think it is because I think we have a huge draw pretty close. The Bay Area is huge, and that's a drive time that people don't have to get on a plane to be here. There are, hundreds of thousands of people that can come here in a day's drive. And so I think it will bounce back reasonably.
Sonoma County will bounce back a lot faster than areas like San Francisco.
I think so too.
Because it will start with smaller events and smaller groups. Yeah. And we're perfect for that. We're not in Moscone, the huge convention center of San Francisco. And we also we don't have as much of the international traveler. As Beth said, we have the Bay Area traveler. I know Judy will tell you from the Cheese Fest, you do get international, you get people from all over the US, but a large portion is that drive. And what we found is actually LA, which used to be a direct flight and still is, but used to be a popular flight, has become a drive market and will be. Someone won't think twice because people want to travel. And tourism will be back. People will want to travel. Now they want to travel safely. So it's going to take some time, but travel will be back. Events and trade shows are going to happen. So many of us want to go to a concert. People want to go to Country Summer. They want to do it safely. Bottle Rock has announced their new dates for Labor Day. People want to go. Now, again, they want to do it safely. So it's a matter of when, not a matter of if. Right. I want to go eat cheese at the Cheese Festival. It's just a matter of when I go eat cheese, not if I go eat cheese. So.
But I think you're going to see events like the Cheese Festival, which are tasting events. So you've got your glass, you got your little sample. They're going to have a harder time coming back sooner because they're in a larger group of people. Are we going to have to wrap those pieces of cheese and hand them to people, or what are people going to be comfortable with? Mm-hmm. So I think outdoor events, concerts, fairs, or smaller private tasting room events are going to be easier to come back than larger food and wine events.
Great. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I want to thank each of you, Brad, Judy, Beth. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to speak about your experiences and about your organizations. I think it's really important for the students to hear about, there are people behind these incredible events that we have, and these incredible events that we have a huge impact on our local economy. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your information. I do want to say to anybody who's watching that on Thursday, February 23rd is our next and our last virtual experience that we're going to have for Hospitality and Tourism Month. We will be speaking to Dustin Vallette of Vallette Restaurant in Healdsburg, talking about his and his brother's experience growing their restaurant here in Sonoma County. So if you are interested in culinary or maybe even starting your own business, that's a good one to attend. So, okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.